Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight, brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing, the earth-friendly publisher with books for both adults and children in a wide variety of genres, available in paperback and hardcover, as ebooks, and with some audiobooks as well. In the Spotlight is a wide-ranging weekly interview show with authors, entrepreneurs, professionals, and other experts. Your host is Cynthia McGregor. Opinions and views expressed by the guests or hosts on this show do not necessarily reflect the opinions and views of the creator, Crimson Cloak Radio, the network, the hosts, or sponsors. And now, here's Cynthia.
Thank you, Carly McCracken, and hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. My first guest is a returning guest who shares a first name with me, but she goes by Cindi, and I go by, never call me Cindi. I go by Sin. But Cindi Handley Goodeaux also lives in Florida, but she's up in the North End, and I'm down in the South End. She lives there with her husband and muse. Cindi, is your husband your muse, or are you talking about two different people?
Nope, he's most definitely my muse.
Cindi is a proud mom, graphic designer wannabe, and sometime poet. She is a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators and a professional member of the Cat Writers Association. And if you could see her, as I did before we turned our cameras off, she's wearing cat ears, as she was the last time she was with us. And she tells me she always wears them. Welcome, Cindi, or should I say meow?
Thank you.
And her link is ch.Goodeaux, that's GOODEAUX.com. She's here to talk about her Jelly Bean, and that's JELLIBEAN, Adventures book series. Mama's Map Book 2, released in July, and continues Princess Jellybean's exploration of the world outside of her kingdom. In this second book, shy Penelope Possum is lost. Princess Jellybean joins her quest in looking for clues to find her way back home. The second book in the Adventures of Princess Jellybean series is filled with friendship, fun, and unexpected finds. After all, the best adventure is yet to come. Cindi is the author of Jelly Bean Adventures Book 1, The Adventures of Princess Jellybean, Jelly Bean Adventures Book 2, Mama's Map, and Grandpa Moon. Before we get into talking about Jelly Bean, tell me a little about Grandpa Moon, Cindi. What is it?
Grandpa Moon was a story that was inspired by a true story. A friend of mine shared how when her father passed away, her daughter, who was 4 at the time, had a really difficult time understanding. So in Grandpa Moon, Montana, who was inspired by the real girl Montana, her grandpa goes in the hospital and he doesn't come home. Of course, at 4, you can imagine trying to understand why that is. So the book is a gentle way to have the conversation with children that can be very difficult. And it's also a way to show that love lives forever, because in the story, she finds a way to reconnect with him through nature and continue that relationship. And it just revives him for her in her mind.
Sounds like a very necessary book. One hopes it won't become necessary, but when it is, it sounds helpful.
Absolutely. I worked with several counselors to make it a very gentle book.
Good. Now, can you tell me about Mama's Map?
Yes. We left Jelly Bean and the last story after she had encountered some clowns and then fell asleep. The second book literally picks up from the next morning, where she wakes up and encounters Penelope Possum, who is terribly shy but needs to ask for help. And Jelly Bean sees helping as an adventure, so she decides to help her find her way home. And the two of them look for clues together. They meet some crazy characters. They find a map, an unexpected type of map. And so the book actually teaches kids the basics of reading a map, about the symbols equaling something they can see, a tree or a mountain.
Uh-huh. And were any of your characters inspired by a real person?
Yes, and I didn't think this. It wasn't an active thought when I wrote the book. But Penelope is actually based on my younger sister. When we were children, she was painfully shy and couldn't speak in public. So she'd whisper in my ear and I'd speak for her. So the character is pretty much her. And she was thrilled when I told her that.
Does your main character have a tagline?
Yes. That's be kind, be curious, be you. I feel like it kind of encompasses the character.
Say it again, be what?
Be kind, be curious, be you.
Aha. Is writing a book series more challenging than writing a standalone book?
Well, it's sort of, because when you're writing a standalone book, you pretty much can just have the facts there in front of you. When you're writing a series, it's important that you go back and reference the prior books. So I would say it's more challenging in that you want to have continuity with the character and the story and the place where she lives. And you just have to make sure that what you've said is her favorite color in every book. And you don't want to divert from that because it kind of pulls people back out of the story.
Right. Is there going to be a Jelly Bean 3?
I have Jelly Bean 3 and 4 completed. They're just pending illustrations.
Is the same person illustrating them who illustrated the others?
Yes, so far Sanghamitra Dasgupta has illustrated 3 of my books. And I know you've worked with her too, and
Yes.
and I think she does some amazing work. She has such a command of color.
And she's so quick too. Good.
Amazingly quick, almost impossibly quick. Absolutely.
Do you have any items that you offer along with your books?
Yes, I make necklaces that have Princess Jellybean's picture on it. I also recently created an activity book. A local restaurant asked me to come up with something for their kids' meal. So I created this that has coloring pages from the book, but then I also went and found mazes and word searches and things I thought that would be a lot of fun.
Good, and that should promote sales of your book, yes?
Absolutely. The last cover actually has links to my book, so that helps them kind of lead them along in the story and then show them where they can purchase the book.
Good. What kind of research do you do, and how long do you spend researching before beginning a book?
I kind of do it alongside. I do a lot of research at the beginning, and I keep all the information I find on a document. For this book, I research possums, because even though it's a fictional story about a talking possum, I feel the need to be authentic with the information. I don't want someone who happens to be a possum expert read my book and go, possums would never do that. I want them to say, wow, they really got that fact right. So possums do have eyelashes. Possums live in rocky areas. Things like that are important to me. So I kind of do both. I do a deep dive at first, and then I continue to research as I go along.
Good. How are your book signings going? I know you've been doing book signings. How are they going?
So far, they've been fantastic. I've only done 2 with Mama's Map, but I actually sold out of that book in 9 days. The supply that I had on hand, it was pretty tremendous. It's the first time I've sold out so quickly, but it's been received very well, especially people that had read the first book. I've gotten a lot of feedback about from little kids, little girls especially, that really connect with the character of Princess Jellybean.
What are you going to work on next?
Well, I'm debating on which book I want to come out next. So I have either the next Princess Jellybean book, or I have a STEM story about a little girl that wants to be a marine biologist. So I'm debating which of those stories, but then I also finished writing 2 other stories this year that I'm going to be working to edit.
And tell me, you're a professional member of the Cat Writers Association. Do you also write about cats other than Princess Jellybean, who is a cat?
As of this moment, no. Princess Jellybean was pretty much the reason that I got in the Cat Writers Association. I think they're a wonderful organization that promotes everything to do with cats, from the care of to fictional stories about everything in the world of cats. So it's been an honor to be a member of that and be connected with that group of people. But right now, Princess Jellybean is the only cat, other than her parents, of course.
Do you contemplate writing something more about cats, perhaps real cats, in the future, or is that not on your list of things to do?
It's not currently on my list. I do have a dog story that I want to write about my Chihuahua. A lot of people, he has an Instagram, so people are asking for, you should write something with him. So I think that's probably going to be my next fictional animal story. As far as a realistic story, it's not something I've thought about, but I think it would be really cool to write about.
Can you read us a sample of of Mama's Map?
Sure. The setup for this is that, of course, they've been on this journey looking for her way home. They've found a number of clues. They've talked to some characters, and they're almost there. So at this moment, Penelope's been reading a book, and she thinks she sees something that might be a clue. Jellybean noticed that Penelope had stopped flipping pages and asked what she was reading. She handed the book to Jellybean, open to a mountain picture. Jellybean looked at the picture and then at her friend. "What is it, Penelope?" Penelope answered, "Something is familiar, and it makes me think of my family home." "Keep looking at the picture, and I'll keep looking for clues," said Jellybean. Jellybean raised her head to look around. They were on a dirt path, and to the left of them was a river. She looked to the right and saw a great big hill covered in grass, with rocky areas peeking through. From a distance, that looked like a mountain, so she decided they should go there to look for clues. Penelope looked up from the book as they neared the tall hill. Jellybean saw a rock, so she bent to pick it up. "Look, I think it's another map," she said excitedly. "It is, Jellybean, it is," shouted Penelope, now holding the rock in each paw. Penelope climbed out of the wagon and began looking around for clues as well. The two friends now walked in opposite directions, but made sure to keep each other in sight. Jellybean walked towards the hill and stopped when she heard something that sounded like singing. "Penelope, over here," she called to her friend. Penelope joined Jellybean, who motioned for her to listen. It sounds like home," shouted Penelope, who began running towards the hill. Jellybean grabbed her wagon and tried to catch up.
Thank you.
That's it.
And that's the middle of the story, I take it, rather than the beginning or the end, right?
Correct. It's actually closer to the end than the beginning.
Good. And where can people buy this book? Please give us purchase information.
Absolutely. My books are available anywhere. There is online books available, so Amazon, Barnes & Noble, even Walmart.com has my books, which really impressed me. So they can buy them there. The e-books are coming out this week, hopefully, for Mama's Map and Grandpa Moon. So I also have them on my website. So you gave the website address, ch.goodeaux.com.
ch.goodeaux, GOODEAUX.com.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. You got any funny stories, interesting stories, heartwarming stories, anything along that line that you'd care to share with us?
I've had a lot of fun meeting fans of the story. There in Montana, I got to meet her in person. I hadn't met her in person. I'm friends with her mother. Met her. She came to a book signing, and I actually let her sign Grandpa Moon along with me. And that was a lot of fun, having her there and experiencing that. Now she wants to become a writer. And then at my last book signing, the one for Mama's Map, a little girl came in a rainbow kitty cat dress and kitty cat shoes just for the day. And that absolutely made my entire day. I thought it was the cutest thing for her to dress in theme to come see me. Princess Jellybean is, of course, a rainbow-hued calico cat. That was a lot of fun to me to see her walk in the door, ready to get her next book.
Got any other stories?
Just seeing some of the adults that connect with my story also has been a lot of fun. Even ones that don't have any children. Even though Princess Jellybean is pretty much geared at 4 to 8-year-olds, I'm seeing some teenagers tell me they love the story. Some adults buy the book for themselves. So when I go to sign it, I say, "Who would you like me to sign it to?" They're like, "Me." And that's been a lot of fun to me, is just to know that I've created something that people are connecting with on many levels.
Good. We have 15 minutes left, Cindi.
Wow.
Would you like to talk more about your creative process? For example, how did you come up with the idea for Princess Jellybean? Where did she originate from in your mind?
Sure, absolutely. Princess Jellybean was originally a poem, which I wish I could find a copy of. I wrote it for my then 6-year-old nieces. One lives in Alabama, one lives in Louisiana. And I wanted to create this character as a way to connect with them. So I wrote about a rainbow-hued cat that loves to travel and loves adventure. And I sent the copy of the poem to each of them with a stuffed cat. I think it was an orange cat, because that's all that was available. And my intention was to continue with that and just write her various adventures, but time and work got the better of me, and it just didn't happen. So years later, a contest came up for a children's story, and I thought, well, I have a character. Now I'll build a story around her. I am an advocate for people with disabilities. So in the first story, Jellybean actually encounters some children playing with other children that don't have disabilities, and some of the children do, and so she sees it as a normal part of life. So my purpose for that first story was to use language to introduce that concept to children. So I say they sing out loud, or they sign with happy hands, they dance on feet or wheels, and I've had a lot of people in the disability community use this book in their child's school, which has been very exciting for me, because I actually was able to go into a school and talk about people with disabilities and talk about their various tools that they use. I actually created a poster for that. That's been a lot of fun.
Great. What about the other characters in the book? In both books? Did
Sure.
any of them get inspired in any particular way?
That's a great question. And one of my favorite characters in the first book is the baker. The baker decides to create a cake. She's just so enamored with Jellybean, and when it's her birthday, she wants to do a book-themed birthday party. And so when Sankomicho first drew it, she drew her as a cat, and I said, no, I want Princess Jellybean's world to be a variety of animals, and she came up with this adorable bear and this absolutely beautiful cake that I would love to have for my own birthday. So I enjoyed that character, and of course her mom and her dad would be based on my own parents. Her mom is very gentle and wise, and her father is the king. He's very strong and protective. Their nickname for her, which you don't hear about till a later book, is actually Jelly. Jelli. So I use that a lot for Jelly. In my second book, there are 3 birds that she and Penelope encounter. They're parrots, and they are based on my uncles. And I haven't told them that yet. But one of the birds play a kind of a trick on them, and the birds think it's hilarious. And of course, Jellybean and Penelope just walk away like, whatever. But the joke that they play on them is actually one my uncle played on me when I was chasing my cousin as a child. So I was like, this was so funny as an adult, I thought I have to use this. And if you want me to tell you, I'll tell you what the joke is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, they ask her, when they arrive at the tree, they begin discussing with the birds, did you see anything? We're looking for her family. We're looking for her home. And one of the birds says, yes, there was a family of possums here, and they were holding rocks. And we don't know where they went from there. Jellybean said, well, you had to have seen something. Which way did they go? One of the birds points to the left, one of the birds points to the right, and the one in the middle points both ways. And the birds are so enamored with this joke, they fall off their branch laughing. And my uncle actually did that to me when I was chasing my cousin. I stopped when I saw him, and I said, which way did she go? And he pointed in both directions at the same time. And when you're 6 or 7 years old, it's like, wait, what? But now, as an adult, I think that's pretty funny, so I used it in my story.
Good. And how long have you been published by Crimson Cloak?
Well, my first book with them came out last November. It took us about a year to find an illustrator. One they found couldn't commit. Then I had found a couple that were interested, but just couldn't get there. I thought at one point my niece would be my illustrator, but of course that pressure was a lot for a 15-year-old girl at the time. So I think it all worked out the way it was supposed to, and then I ended up with Sankomicho, and it's been incredible to work with her. She wants to illustrate all my books. I currently have 7 under contract with Crimson Cloak, so these are just my first 3 to come out, but the first one came out November 11th, 2018.
And you have 7 books under contract, you say?
I do, yes ma'am.
So two of them are Princess Jellybean books.
Correct.
And what are the others?
Well, there's a total of 4 Princess Jellybean books. And then, of course, Grandpa Moon. I have one about a palm tree who's lonely and looking for friendship. He's on an island by himself. I've got a STEM story about a little girl who loves everything to do with fish. And I had a lot of fun writing that one. It's probably more of an early reader than a picture book because it ended up being about 2,500 words. And it's because I just dove in so deep with facts. I took 2 years of marine biology in school, so just kind of all brought that back. And I just read everything to do with fish and then the different types of scientists that study them and what they study and how they're fed and how they're kept. And I just really, really got super nerdy with it, and it was fantastic. And it ended up being that story about this little girl. And her best friend is actually a fish in the story.
Huh.
So she's moved to a new town, and she befriends a fish, which is silly. My dad is actually her uncle in the story, and my mom is her aunt. So I do like to incorporate family members in my story. Always positive. I'll never have negative characters with family members. But my stories tend to be very positive. I call my style write cute. There's meet cute, where people have a cute story about how they met. So I write cute. I write cute stories with cute characters.
Good. How did you find Crimson Cloak?
They actually found me. I had a first publisher that I paid to publish my book. That I now know that's called Vanity Publishing, and it ended with them being shut down by the State Department. They weren't paying their authors, and they actually went to jail. After that happened, I kind of questioned, am I a good writer? Because did they just publish my book because I paid them to? It was very painful and very confusing. But almost within a week or two of that situation, I talk about my books all the time, everywhere, and especially online. I feel like it's a really good tool for marketing. So I had posted about my book and about my character, and Crimson Cloak actually found me on Twitter and said, we see you posting about this book. We really feel like, even though we're not accepting submissions, that your book fits our ethos, and we would love to read it. And I ended up sending them 3 books, the first 3 Princess Jellybean books. And the feedback was a little painful at first because they wanted some changes. And I thought, this is my baby. How can I make these changes? This is how I birthed it. This is my baby. But really, if you could take a step back and really think about and process the feedback, it was really good feedback. And what they wanted was more to the story. What I had written for the prior publisher was about 500 words. The story ended up being like 1,700 words. And what I did was I thought about all these backstory movies for superheroes that have come out. So you have the X-Men, but then you have Wolverine's backstory. And so I kind of thought, well, I'll go and write her backstory. And my husband helped me come up with some topics to write about in her past. In the first book, she talks about having this tremendous library. So I went back and added, how did she get the tremendous library? And it was that the knights went on adventures and then would bring her a book back because they loved her so much. They wanted to add to this library, and it became this tremendous thing. Books are very important in Jellybean's world.
Good. And tell us about your hobbies. What do you do when you're not writing or when you're not taking care of your family? What do you do for relaxation?
That's a great question. Mostly just downtime, just resting. I have a Chihuahua, so I spend a lot of time with him and my husband. My kids are grown and gone, so it's just the 3 of us now, and I really enjoy that. So when I'm not writing or reading, I like to create art. I'm not good at it, but I love to create, just to come up with something creative. So I like to paint on canvases. Don't know that I would show them to very many people, but it is something I really love doing. I especially love to get my fingers in the paint. I just really connect with the paint on the canvas. And it's something it's really messy, but it really, really feels fantastic to do that. Just express. I love to sing. I'm a former professional clown, so that, even though I don't do that professionally anymore, is still part of who I am. So I have a lot of clown friends. So just laughter, and reading, and writing, and creating art. That's things I like.
What do you like to read? What's your favorite fiction, nonfiction, biographies, love stories, what?
Yes. I love to read anything and everything. I love to read self-help, especially things about being creative, because I used to be very fearful about sharing things I created. So I read Steve Harvey's Act Like a Success, Think Like a Success. And in that, he talks about finding your purpose. And he has a series of questions to ask yourself. Well, I've now read that book 3 times. And every time I read it, I'm a writer. And that really was just like, this is what I've always wanted to do since I was a child. This is still who I am. Then I'm going to do it. And that kind of led me to that. Another one is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She talks about being fearlessly creative, literally making fear sit in a chair and leave you alone while you're creating. And I think that book helps me a lot. So those 2 books I tend to like to read in January every year, just to kind of fire me up for the year creatively. As far as fiction, I am a little slightly obsessed with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I always have a copy of Douglas Adams' books on my phone, and it goes with me everywhere because anytime there's downtime, I'm going to want to go read that. I love the movie too because of just the absolute silliness, and I feel like a lot of it inspired me when I wrote Princess Jellybean. I see it. I don't know if other people would see it. In some of the tongue-in-cheek references that I make in the first book. For example, where I say that everyone knows that a human's fur is just plain, talking about as if humans have fur, but just to say it like absurdly, that I felt like that inspiration comes from just his wonderful silliness.
And do you have any final words you'd like to share with us before I say goodbye to you?
Sure. Almost every book signing, someone says, "Oh, I've always wanted to write a book. I've always thought about it. I have an idea." And I will always encourage people with that. I believe everybody has a book in them. It's a matter of sitting down and committing the time and writing it, and then being brave when you put it on paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be written A to Z. It can be written A to F, and then you pick up at N and go forward. It can be absolutely written non-linear. But I absolutely will encourage, every time that comes out of somebody's mouth, I'm saying, do it. Absolutely do it. It's never too late. There was a 102-year-old woman that just published a book of poetry. It is literally never too late to follow that if that's what you want to do.
And Cindi, please repeat again for my listeners what your website is or what the places are where they can purchase your books.
Absolutely. It's everywhere worldwide where books are sold online. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, those websites carry my books. And also I have a website, which is ch.Goodeaux, which is spelled good, GOODEAUX.com. I blog there. I've got my books there. People can connect with me through that site.
Well, thank you very much, Cindi Handley Goodeaux, for being with us today. It was great having you back. Good luck with your books and everything else that you're doing. I hope you get happy with your art to the point that you can show it fearlessly to others. And say hi to Princess Jellybean for me.
I will, Sin. It was so good talking to you. Thank you so much.
Take care, Cindi. Bye-bye now.
Goodbye.
And now it's time for our word from our sponsors. Our show is brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing, publishers of a wide variety of books, fiction, nonfiction, children's, adults, everything except erotic romance. And this week we are featuring Murder is Served by Barbara Fox. Who poisoned the senator? Who stabbed the chef? Who shot the actor? These and dozens of other mysteries are waiting to be solved, and you are invited to solve them. Read about the crime, meet the suspects, look for clues and information, and then try to figure out who done it before reading the solution on the next page. The detectives can solve the crime, can you? Murder is Served is available at Amazon.com, at booksbybarbara.com, and other online bookstores. Okay, let me bring on my next guest, Peter Shore. Hold on while I get a hold of him. No, Cynthia, that's not the way to do it. There we go. Pete.
Hello.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Good, really good.
Good. Well, if you're ready, I'm ready. And
I'm ready.
let me introduce you to our audience. Retired Navy Chief from Brooklyn, New York, now residing in Georgia, Peter Shore has 9 children between his wife and himself. 6 are grown and out of the house, but 3 are their very young adopted grandchildren. Pete's wife works outside the home while his role is stay-at-home dad. He homeschooled their 3 young children, ages 9, 7, and 5. Sophia, Caleb, and Bradley have been in the custody of Pete and his wife since 2011, and adoption was finalized January 2018. He's coming on the show to discuss the plight of grandparents, raising their grandchildren, and anyone raising children not their own. Also, he wants to discuss the emotional turmoil of the displaced children and the book he wrote for children to better understand their emotions and that they are not alone. He has direct experience raising grandchildren and wants to talk about how that inspired the book, as well as talk about the upcoming website and its purpose. First of all, the title of your book, Pete. I know, but the listeners don't, so sing it out. What's the title of your book?
The title of the book is Papa and Punchinella.
And how did you come to write a children's book?
Originally, I was going to be writing an adult book based on the challenges of the Florida court system regarding grandparents and trying to gain custody of the children. But my little daughter saw me doing some homework for college and asked me if I could write something about the emotions she went through leading up to adoption. And that kind of inspired me to let me write a children's book based on a child through the lens of the child that other children can read and realize that they're, in similar circumstances and realize that they're not alone in the system.
And who are you trying to reach with this book then? Kids who have been adopted by their grandparents?
Yeah, for some of it, it's children not living with their biological parents. So that could be relative caregivers, even some not so much foster, but maybe new adopted parents, even, and the children of them, because a lot of times the adoptive parents adopt based on circumstances with the children, and also, like I said, the grandparents too. So we got the grandparents, any relative caregivers, which could be aunts, uncles, even adult cousins, and folks like that are raising the child that they're not their own biological offspring. And then, of course, it also is going to target some of the children that are friends of them, because then they get to realize that their friend, what their friend is going through. And I've had quite a bit of children who are living with their biological parents tell me, I never knew that there was children like that. And I thought that was really important. So it kind of gave an extra element to the book as far as who the target audience could be.
And Pete, why do you think it's important and relevant to get this book out there these days?
The book itself, I think, is a
pioneer book. No one has written one like this particular one, where you're looking through the lens of the child as she goes through her emotional journey from displacement to adoption. And I think it's very relevant today because just the grandparent demographic raising their grandkids is almost close to 4 million households. And it's growing as one of the fastest demographics right now, just in the United States, let alone globally. And a part of that reason is because of the opioid crisis. And so there's a lot of parents that are either being jailed, removed from the home, arrested. Some of them are overdosing and passing away. And that's obviously a real permanent issue then. So these are the things that I noticed was happening in the community as well as nationally. And I thought that it's kind of a sad thing that the grandparents have to go and raise a second generation, but it seems that it's becoming more commonplace.
And did you see your daughter Sophia going through the emotions you list in the book for Punchinella?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I wrote the book in the order of the emotions that she experienced as she went from worry when she first was displaced to excitement when she finally was adopted at the end of the book. And although the book does end with adoption, I just want the audience out there to understand that just the fact that a child has a soft place to fall, even if that's just a guardianship or custody for extended family, those are still fairly permanent. And at least the children know they're safe and secure, and that's the most important part.
Is there a significance to the name of the little girl in the book, Punchinella?
Yes, there is. When I was growing up, there was a little sing-song dance kind of thing, and what it was called was Punchinello. And Punchinello, which is spelled Punchinello, was from an Italian folk song about a little girl, a little boy, in the middle of a circle, and they would sing to him, what you gonna do, Punchinello, Punchinello, what you gonna do, Punchinello, in the zoo, and he would grab one of the girls to do a little dance with her, and those outside in the circle would have to copy that particular dance step, but they would constantly ask him, what you gonna do, Punchinello, Punchinello. So when she was born, I just changed the name to a more feminine name because she just looked so cute and tiny. So it was kind of a combination of Thumbelina and Punchinello, and I ended up making the name Punchinella. So it's Punchanella, and I call her even Punchy for short to this day. So it's an actual real nickname that I've given her. And so it kind of flowed when I said, you know what, the title of the book should be Poppin' Punchinella, and it kind of made sense to me, and with the double P's in there, and there's the title.
How does Sophia feel about the book? How does she feel about a book that was basically written about her?
She was one of my critiquers, I guess, of the book. And when all was said and done and we finished it, although I had a few other people give me a hand, I got to give them kudos there. She said, yep, this is pretty much how I felt throughout the whole ordeal, Papa, and I appreciate that. So she, like I said, she's 9 years old now. She was about 7 when I started the book, and she's been with me through it the whole way, reading drafts and pieces and helping me to correct it into the way it now is finalized in the book.
You homeschool your kids. Is that really a tough job at this point? You're a grandfather, you've got kids to raise, and now you're teaching them also?
I'll tell you, it's probably just raising the children that way. I now know how it feels to be the stay-at-home dad, as opposed to what you have the stay-at-home mom stereotype, which is kind of an awful term. But I now realize from the shoe being on the other foot. I did 20 years in the Navy, and I will probably tell you that raising the children close-knit in the environment they're in, with some of the special needs that they have due to the abuse which caused all the adoption, it's a tough job. I would say maybe it's even tougher than my whole 20 years in the Navy. But again, I wouldn't change it for the world, and I understand the plight of the other grandparents that are going through what they're going through, especially since a lot of them live on fixed income, whether that's even pension included. They have their life all mapped out, and then it kind of turns around on them.
What lifestyle changes have you and your wife gone through as a result of taking custody of your grandkids?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sin. One is that, say going to Sunday school. I'm in my late 50s, and they would like to place me in an empty nester class, we'll say. But I have youngins, so I actually have more of a common denominator, I guess, in the children. So I do better with the middle 30s group. So that's changed a little bit. Folks my age don't invite us as often because, again, they're empty nesters, and they know that I come with my little package of, to me, they're valuables, and these children mean a lot. So we have them, following us everywhere we go, and babysitting is a little bit tough because of some of the conditions of the children. But for the most part, as far as generationally, it's interesting on who I am now hanging out with, if you want to call it that, is kind of like the younger 30-somethings who have children the same age. So that's one thing. The other thing is Sheila and I my wife is Sheila, she and I could just drop everything and just say, hey, let's go on a cruise in 2 weeks, sign up for one and go. Now that's no longer that way, because now we have to plan better. We have to budget differently. So these are the things that kind of, handcuff us is what some people would say, but to us, we enjoy doing it because we like having them come on the cruises now with us. Another thing I would say is that, like I said, that freedom of movement, but also there is the environment of the people who, kind of look at us and I'm not sure what we are. Are we the grandparents? Are we the parents? And it's almost that they still feel we fulfill two roles. But to be honest with you, there is no spoiling and sugaring, if you know what I mean, anymore. Because they're mine and they live in my house, and I'm not going to give them that sugar rush and buy them the noisiest toy and send them back to their parents, right? I have to, say, hey, this isn't going to happen. So I have to change even that kind of behavior. The other thing is my relationship with my other grandchildren who are not living with me, because now my grands are my children and my sons and daughter, as opposed to my other grandchildren that are still grandchildren. So sometimes there's a little bit of a friction there too.
Where can folks order your book?
You can order it from Amazon, and you can order it direct from me.
And where would they order it from you?
They can get right now on PayPal, although there's a website coming up that they will be able to PayPal it to by just typing in my email address at this point. And like I said, but if people prefer Amazon, that's just as secure. So is PayPal. It'd be just like you doing an eBay with me, and that would be Peter, F as in Frank, Shore, SHORE, JR @gmail.com.
Peter, F as in Frank, Shore, SHORE, JR like Junior, @gmail.com.
That's correct, yep.
And you have a website coming up, but it's not operational yet.
I do. We have it just about live, and that is going to be, for ease of Googling, I made it grandparents parenting grandkids.org.
Yeah.
The other one, I have two others, and that's when people get more familiar with the book and who Punchinella is. It's going to be papa-and-punchinella.org and .com. So the one that's people will Google probably is some kind of grandparents parenting grandkids. .org.
And that will be live soon?
That should be live within the month.
Within the month.
Probably by the end of this month.
And did I hear a dog barking in the background?
Yes, I have a Weimaraner.
And what is the Weimaraner's name?
Max.
Max. Oh,
and he's 7 months old.
I had a cat named Max once.
Yeah, he's adorable, and he's a big, already 70 pounds, very kid-friendly pet. If anybody ever wanted to have a kid-friendly pet, a Weimaraner is very much so a very loyal animal.
Now, this website that's coming up, to get back to that, is the purpose of that site to market the book, or do you have some other purpose in mind?
Yes, we have various kind of irons in the fire, so to speak. The one is, of course, to market the book, but other things that people can take action on while they're on the site is they can look at my blog. I'm going to have little things on there about day-to-day stuff with the kids that are kind of unique to grandparents raising grandkids. I'm also having a section where grandparents and relative caregivers can navigate some of the legal system. I'm going to have available some attorneys that are agreeable with offering some discounts to these grandparents who normally live on a fixed income with any legal help they may need in getting custody of their grandchildren. And of course, because that differs from state to state, I'm picking three or more attorneys from each state to be able to kind of partner up with me in the website to be able to do that. And that's what the proceeds is going to be for, too, is to help these grandparents out, as well as then I'm going to have public speaking engagement, calendar, and things like that to be able to talk to people about, hey, this is what we went through. This is what's happening. I'm going to write another book more geared for adults called Little Miracles, and it's because not only are my three children miracles, there's miracles that occurred as we went through the journey of from the time we had temporary custody to more permanence with the adoption.
Good. And when will that book be out?
I would probably say before the end of the year. At least I'll have it finished, and then I'll go ahead and see, and I'll probably self-publish that one.
Well, good luck to you. How about sharing some part of Papa and Punchinella with me?
Absolutely. I set up the book so that there's emojis of just Punchinella's head that give the next emotion. So it would be something like Punchinella is worried, or Punchinella is angry, Punchinella is smiling, Punchinella is happy, that kind of thing. And it would be her head as an emoji with that particular expression. And that's how I divided the book up. So if you want to call those little chapters of emotion, then so be it. But I'm just going to start with the very first couple of pages just to get a flavor of the book. So in the doorway are the kids with a police officer and a caseworker. Of course, we're not calling it that in the book. I have I'll read from the book directly now. Standing in the doorway of Papa and Mimi's home are their three grandchildren. A nice lady who works to protect children has brought them there. Bring your brothers in, Punchinella, says Papa. We're so glad you're here. Aye, Papa, replies Punchinella. Papa senses the worry in her voice. Punchinella sees her grandparents and the nice lady talking, but she doesn't quite understand. What she does understand is that it's not good. And you'll see later on in the book that I repeat that sentence with saying she does understand that it's very good. So it does have a happy ending. And then as she watches the caseworker and the police officer leave, Punchinella watches as the nice lady leaves. Punchinella is very worried about herself and her brothers. She thinks, why do we have to leave our home? And then the rest of the book is all about that. Why she's left the home. What's going on. She has a lot of dialogue with Papa. Papa tries to bestow some wisdom on her that I also hope bestows some wisdom to the grandparents as they're also navigating through these emotions with the child as they go from the displacement part of their lives to more of a soft place to fall and a sense of security and permanency. And that's what is really important. Sophia also has, Punchinella has a tiki. It's a blanket, and that's her security. And there's a lot of children that when they're displaced, they need something to cling on that used to be theirs that's close to them. Whether it's a teddy bear or an action doll of some sort, but for Punchinella, it's a tiki, her blanket, and Tiki is a character in the book. So some of the things I may be doing in the future with the book is to maybe offer a free Tiki. One of the things on the website too is there's going to be merchandise, Papa and Punchinella merchandise, both on T-shirts, on pop sockets for the phones, on backpacks, pencil cases, little things like that the children can buy and wear. And little dresses as well for the girls, and T-shirts for the boys. So, and they can have it whichever way. Some of them I'm going to just have Punchinella on it, and some I may have Papa and Punchinella, may have the whole family, because she has two brothers that don't have any speaking parts in the book, but they're present and they're part of what Puncinella's feeling. She just is kind of the spokesman in the book for her two brothers, and it's I think it works out well and comes to a pretty decent conclusion at the end.
Pete, we have about 7 minutes left. Do you have a story to share with us, either a heartwarming story or a funny story or one of each that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, certainly. When we got to the adoption, so I'll go right there because that was an interesting day. Punchinella and Caleb, Sophia and Caleb were the first ones we had gotten, and then we later on got their half-brother, Bradley. And so those are the two brothers that are then in the book. But when we went to court that day, Sophia had asked my wife if she was now her mommy. And that name did change from Mimi to Mommy. And she was very cautious about that because she knew she had what she was describing as a tummy mommy. And that's what that's how they say it now on the streets, is a tummy mommy or baby mama or whatever. But so she asked if she could then call Mimi Mommy. And of course my wife said absolutely, because I really now am. Birth certificate reflects it and everything. And but I stayed as Papa to this day. So I'll always been Papa is another name for Daddy, so I'm perfectly fine with that. But they'll introduce me sometimes, and that's kind of amusing that, hey, he's my daddy, but we call him Papa. So, with my wife, it's like, this is Mommy, and this is Papa. He's my daddy, but we call him Papa. And I thought that was kind of cute. So my name stuck.
Well, Papa is a legitimate name for fathers, absolutely. So
that's true.
Grandfathers are more often Pop or something like that.
Right, Pop or Poppy or something.
Yeah,
Yep.
my grandfather was Poppy. Yeah. I only had one grandfather. My paternal grandparents had died before my father even met my mother, so I she never even knew them, let alone my knowing them. So I only had one set of grandparents. So,
just one more thing. I guess we got a couple minutes. The children are homeschooled also because, I'm not going to get into graphic detail, but because of the special needs that came about from the abuse. They do have some issues with, being able to acclimate to the regular school environments. Caleb, one of my sons, has autism. Another one has what they call maple syrup urine disease, and that came actually from drug taking. And then I have my daughter who has been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder only because she's witnessed some of the cruelty that occurred in a biological house. So from there, it's best if we homeschool them because some of the adjustment is rough, and PTSD can be triggered just like a guy who fought in a war. It was amazing to even hear that a little child can actually have that diagnosis, but they could. And Caleb, of course, was shaken baby, so he's autistic, and that's why he's home. And as a matter of fact, I'm just putting my youngest guy in school just to see how it will be as what they call the exceptional student program and stuff. So we're checking that out. Today was his first day, as a matter of fact. And we've already only got one phone call today, which I was flabbergasted. I figured I was going to get 15 of them because he has a lot of ADHD and things like that going on with him. A lot of it comes from the genetic metabolic disorder that he has. But like I said, all in all, we just have wonderful bundles of joy. Our lifestyle has changed even with food, because I have one kid who's celiac and another one that can't have protein, so my pantry's even divided up into thirds. So even through this whole ordeal of adoption and the abuse in the house, I also come to find out that they have challenges of their own that they're going to live with pretty much for the rest of their life. So now it's become the new buzzword everybody says now, right? It's the new norm. Well, it is the new norm for us, and it's just natural behavior for us at this point to know what to do, that my pantry's divided in thirds, that when we go out anywhere, I have to do special things ahead of time and stuff like that for protection, make sure nobody's going to trip offline, make sure that the children are eating the right stuff. It's like I said, it's just, the adventure has just begun, really. Once you say yes in that courtroom, that yes, I'll take custody of the children, you just don't know what YES, that 3-letter word, actually means. And it's turned our life upside down, but it's also been an amazing adventure. And I tell other grandparents, please don't be down on yourself or feel guilty about what your son or daughter has done, which made you have their children back again. Just understand that you're really heroes for stepping up to the plate and giving them a great place to fall, a soft place to fall, as I call it. And I think that's really the biggest thing, because children are not inanimate objects. They're usually the innocent ones in it. And a lot of times the courts play with them like pawns on a chessboard. And they have to realize that, hey, these are live human beings with separate personalities. And so that's one of the reasons, too, that I wrote the book, is to let the children know that, hey, I'm not alone. I feel this way sometimes. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel curious. I'm uneasy. I'm smiling. And sometimes it goes round and round, just like a person who grieves. They call those, 5 or 6, 7 steps of grieving. Yeah. They have kind of a grieving, too, when they're going from a displaced and disjointed dysfunctionality to a little bit more controlled chaos living with us.
Well, Pete, suppose you tell my listeners one more time where they can buy your book before we sign off.
Sure. Again, it's Papa and Punchinella. And my artist, by the way, went and did every one of those drawings on a sketch pad, and the way to duplicate that was amazing to me, that the pictures never changed. You know who Papa is and Punchinella is the whole time. And you can purchase the book either through Amazon or through me directly at Peter F. as in Frank Shore, SHORE, JR@gmail.com through my PayPal. And you can Facebook me too and be my friend real quick if you want to go purchase the book and private message me, and I can give you some information that way too. And then we can take it from there, and I'll make sure that the book is delivered in a nice bubble wrap envelope so it doesn't get destroyed in transit. And I'll sign it too, by the way. I'll sign the book.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Peter Shore, for being my guest today on In the Spotlight.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And folks, remember, In the Spotlight is brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing for a wide variety of books of many, almost all genres, everything except erotic romance, everything else, fiction, nonfiction, children's, adults. You can find it at crimsoncloakpublishing.com. So I'll see you here next week, and remember to pass a smile along. That's it for now. Bye.
You have been listening to In the Spotlight with your host, Cynthia McGregor, brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing. For a wide variety of books for both adults and children in print, ebook, and audio formats, join us every Tuesday at the same time as In the Spotlight brings you interesting guests to entertain and enlighten you. I'm Carly McCracken. On behalf of Crimson Cloak Publishing, thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next week.